Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've been to the Electric today to see Passages, which is a French romantic drama directed by Ira Sachs, whose work I'm not familiar with. He's from Tennessee, I believe.
Yes, I've seen Keep the Lights On and Love is Strange. And I think I've also seen 40 Shades of Blue.
Do you like his work?
Yes and no, right? And I think actually I like this one the most of all the ones I've seen. Like Keep the Lights On is also about a filmmaker who's making a documentary who falls in love with this Danish guy, but who's got a drug problem. So I like the emotional nuances, of the work. I like the way that it explores contemporary relationships or relationships in a contemporary setting. And I like the way he's with actors, but I don't like the look of his films.
Yeah, I didn't like the look of this. Let me just briefly say what it's about and who it stars. Thomas is played by Franz Rogowski, who we've seen in Transit, Undina, Happy End.
He's wonderful.
He's one, and we really like him.
Yeah.
He's a filmmaker, and we see him at the start directing this film that he's making. He's in a marriage with Martin, who's played by Ben Whishaw. They live in Paris, and one night Thomas sleeps with a friend, Agathe, played by Adele Exarchopoulos, who was in Blue
is the Warmest Colour. She was wonderful in that.
Yeah. And this affair leads to a kind of a bit of turmoil. Thomas, in particular, who is really the central character of the film, is kind of torn between these two relationships, I suppose, and kind of love that he develops for Agathe. I didn't like the look either. I thought it looked dull and it was always kind of lifeless. But this also extended into the film as a whole, which I didn't really get on with. Because remember what the French said about Brief Encounter all those years ago, that famous thing about it's two people in need of a bed, right? Well, in this film, everyone's got beds. They keep on, they find partners quite easily, but no one's happy. I just thought, I kind of felt like...
That is often the case.
I know, but I kind of felt like these people don't have any trouble with places to live. They don't appear to have any trouble with money. They obviously have this thing that kicks off with their relationship, with the affair, but they kind of split up and then they find another partner quite quickly and quite easily. I thought, just fucking lighten up, all of you guys. I really didn't get on with these characters.
Oh, well, I liked it very much. I thought it was really interesting.
I just thought these aren't real problems these people have got for a long time. Until a pregnancy occurs.
But they are. I mean, kind of, these are, in fact, the problems that everybody has. Which is, what's your relationship like? What is love? How secure are you in this relationship? I love that the film begins. They're not just a gay couple. They're a married gay couple. So, and the way that the film begins, the whole thing with the Ben Whishaw character, who's there supporting his husband, at the rap party, but who's got to work the next day and wants to go home and goes home, right? I thought those are dynamics that I understand very well, that they're very comfortable. It is, in fact, a very securely married couple. And then, boom, something happens. And something happens because the filmmaker wants something else. He wants romance and explosions and, kind of explorations. Right, so, he's not happy in a way with what he's got. He wants more. Whereas, kind of Martin is quite happy. It's Martin the Ben Whishaw character. Martin is quite happy with what he's got. And anyway.
There also appears to be some degree of history about it between them, because at the start of the film, when Thomas says, I slept with Agathe, Martin's not happy about it, but he says something like, you're always like this when you finish a film. You always forget. That's right. So there's some history between the two.
And obviously, I think what I liked very much about it, and what to me seems very real, is that the film is very interested in kind of exploring the dynamics of modern relationships, right? And it kind of includes a spectrum of sexual interests and sexual desires, and kind of I get the sense very much that the filmmaker is kind of primarily homosexual, right? But he's kind of very taken with this woman. He has this affair, and something seems to open up. I thought all of that was very interesting, but also you get the feeling that he's just entirely self-involved and entirely selfish and kind of not concerned with other people, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes clearer and clearer, I think, as the film goes on, that he is the cause of, I mean, I get to the point where I'm going, if only, I get to the point where I'm thinking, what is the continued draw to this character that these other characters have? Why are they drawn to him? Or why don't they, particularly Ben Whishaw, although ultimately he does get to the point where he rejects him for good. But why is he continually drawn back to this guy? I wanted more of a sense of what the draw was.
To me, it was very clear. I mean, the filmmaker. Well, first of all, he's very sexy, right? He's got this kind of ugly El Greco face. Yeah, he's got this kind of high-pitched voice, right? Mm-hmm. So you think, oh, he's actually kind of ugly, really, yeah. But then he begins to move in the dance floor, and you can see he's a very sexy man, right? And then, he moves kind of in a very sexual way. He's a good time in bed for sure. And then also, he's an artist. He's somebody who's kind of making films, who's got ideas, who's kind of, who's got kind of a circle. And you could see that, like at the end, when you come to the Venice Film Festival with me, you can see that those things that go with being the type of filmmaker that he is something that he uses to draw people in the way he wants them drawn in. Mm. So I understood that kind of, I understood that.
Mm. I don't think I got as much of a sense of you as you did from the dance scenes or the sex scenes of him as a good mover. Mm. I don't think I really felt that. I think it's partly the way it's shot, which is all this head and shoulders and the kind of long take, and there's not a lot going on in it. It felt kind of dull, as I was saying, roughly speaking, about the look of the film. One thing I did like in one of the early sex scenes, it's the second time he sleeps with a gaff, is that he moans. He's the one making noise, and she's not. She's basically very unusual, like women vocalise, and men typically not so much, if at all. But it's...
Yeah, right.
I mean, less so, but I mean...
In movies,
no,
maybe.
It's true. I mean, it's anyway. But that's the point, is she's the one, because it's in a public place, she's the one shutting him up. He's the one who is kind of being enlivened by this experience, because it's something he hasn't experienced for a long time, and he's falling for her. And sex with a woman is, this kind of, this clearly he's had it before, and not just that he's had sex with her before, but in the past. But he's kind of, there's something renewed and enlivened about him by it, and I thought that was a moment that I really enjoyed. And then eventually, I also kind of thought, these are two actors who, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know if Ben Wishaw's gay.
He is.
Is he? But I don't think Franz Rogowski is, and I'm kind of thinking, all the sex scenes we're seeing with him in particular, because this is what the character's going through, are straight sex scenes, and eventually you get to this gay sex scene between him and Ben Whishaw when they he seduces him once again, and something about that kind of really enlivened the film. And it's partly that it's explicit to a degree that I wasn't expecting, and more so than any of the scenes were with the woman.
The woman, yes.
But maybe that's also because that's something that I have no particular history with.
I mean, it's still kind of very reticent in a way that, heterosexual sex scenes aren't. But it's kind of more daring than is usual. So I liked it. I both liked that, and it felt a bit awkward to me as well.
Yeah. Were there things that struck you as false or kind of bum notes or that kind of thing?
No, it's just the camera was very reticent. Yeah, kind of.
Oh, I didn't necessarily mean in that scene specifically, but throughout the film, were there things that weren't?
No, I think the reason why I like the film is because that kind of felt true to me. And actually, one of the things that. So on the one hand, you're thinking, why is it taking it so long for Martin to really kick him out, right? To put up with all of this, and then of course you realize he loves him, right? And kind of that's why he's doing it, yeah. And then, kind of a line is crossed, yeah. Whereas it's kind of it's different to think that you've come to a new understanding with your partner than to think that you're once more being manipulated, yeah, about something so serious. So I understood all those gradations. What I didn't understand is the protagonist at the end. So I didn't understand why, after Martin says, "I never want to see you again," yeah, kind of, and he's very final about it, why he goes directly to the woman again, yeah, and I just didn't understand that. Right.
It's yeah. Well, I think I got that because these are the two people who he has feelings for, and there's a degree of, at any port in a storm, when he's not with one, he wants to be with the other. When he's with one, he wants to be. He constantly wants both of them. And at one point, he even just says, "I'm confused." And someone at the back of the cinema sniggered, and I was like, "Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, no shit, you're confused." That's all we've seen throughout the whole film is he wants all this stuff. He doesn't really know what he wants, but he wants them both. And so I understood that he would be. It's almost like exhausting his options,
Well, I didn't understand the going back because it had been clear he'd already ended that and returned, and you got the feeling that the person he really loves in that is Martin. Yeah, though it's also clear that the relationship with the woman is also, yeah, effective. He says, "I think I love you" at one point, right, to her. So, but I just thought that if that having was exhausted, kind of you're clear on this man now. Why return to the woman just because he's kicked you out? I mean, that just didn't make sense to me, right?
I just think
he could have found somebody else. He could have gone to a club that night and picked up someone. I mean, there's a million things he could have done rather than return to her. And I also didn't understand, or I couldn't interpret, well, that might be a good thing, the bicycle ride at the end, where, you think he's really sad, he's very frantic, but then it ends with a kind of almost a triumphant kind of little smirk or glint, or
in the Marseillaise plays.
In the Marseillaise plays, yes.
In a kind of jazzy, off-kilter way. But yeah. But I mean, it struck me as pretty derivative as an ending, and I can't wait for the cunt to get run over at that point. To be honest, I thought he's just become because actually the best scene in the film, I thought, by a long way, was the scene between Agathe and Martin, where Thomas and Martin have slept together while they were all at that retreat, the chalet place.
Yeah.
And she's heard it, and that's why she's rejecting Thomas. But then, they're going off to Venice the next day, supposedly, Martin and Thomas, and so Martin goes to see Agathe and say, I guess before it's all kind of coming to an end in a way, and she reveals that she's had her pregnancy aborted, and that is the line that he crosses. That's the line that gets Martin to finally end it with Thomas. It's like what he's capable of putting onto this woman. She's the only one I really felt for at any point in the film, because and I suppose I felt in some way like Martin does at this point. It's that she's the one who's going to have a baby on the way. Like the others have kind of emotional problems and breakups, but Thomas can be a deadbeat dad for all it matters, right? But she's not going to be able to give up this baby if she has it, and that's something that she's been kind of seduced into and subjected to. And so then the fact that he's able to basically put that on her, and then she has to take this decision to
but maybe he's
abort
right.
It.
Maybe they could have had a fantastic relationship raising this child together, in kind of interesting and new ways, which is what lots of people do. So,
what do you mean, the three of them?
Yeah, or maybe the three of them for the next 10 years, and then maybe somebody else, and who knows who the woman might marry later on or whatever. I mean, I don't take the abortion as a given or as a good thing. I mean, it seems to me kind of, I mean, I can understand her a little bit, yeah, but it's not a given. It could have been a great adventure to have that baby.
Yeah, I suppose she always comes across as a kind of normative character. She wants a family, and you get the feeling that it's quite traditional.
And from her parents, for sure, you get that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And she kind of feels pressured by them. But I think you also just get it, like, that's what she wants. That's the kind of life that she wants. And she ultimately has to realise she's not going to get that from Thomas if, in the same building that she's in, he's willing to effectively cheat on her with his ex, or on-off.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if that's kind of the correct language. I mean, the thing is that she's presented as a very strong woman who knows what she wants. At the very beginning, she breaks up with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right? In no uncertain terms, yeah. So, kind of, she's someone who can take care of herself, and this is the way that she's decided to take care of herself.
Yeah.
So
and she doesn't seem cut up about the abortion. It does. I mean, it certainly, we only see it for a scene, her expression, and she's talking to Martin, who is largely a stranger to her. So we're not going to get like all the kind of emotional depths that we might otherwise from her. But she is, it's a decision she's made.
Yeah,
and she is,
and she's got her own logic and so on.
Yeah.
And the reason that she gives for not having the baby with him is like, you two would swallow me up, right? And you kind of get a sense that she might be right about that, right? So you understand her decisions kind of very well. I liked it very much, actually. I like the film very much for those reasons. That kind of, it explores those nuances of a type of a relationship that's certainly kind of not too common, but that is kind of more discussed now with these ideas that people are on a spectrum, that it's not just kind of the opposite of that spectrum, that there's stuff in between homosexuality and heterosexuality, and and men and women and so on. So I thought that this was a very interesting exploration of those those types of feelings and those types of relationships at this time, and I think in a way it's almost like the film is kind of conservative, because people definitely have much more complex relationships than these in real life.
Well, this is what I was just about to say. Like, do you think if the film is about a love triangle where Thomas is straight and he has two women, he's married to a woman, he cheats on her with another woman, how different do you think that film is to this? I don't think very. To a degree it is, but
I think it would be different in the sense that kind of men always have more power, so the dynamics of that would be different, I think.
But I suppose, what I'm getting at is it's a film in which it's a world in which being gay or straight or somewhere in between on the spectrum is of little consequence other than kind of practically. Like, it doesn't mean something different about you.
Well, it means something different to the parents.
Yes, to the parents it does.
Sure. So I think the social element of discrimination and so on is there in the film. The film acknowledges it. But these people are also living in this kind of artistic bohemian world in which kind of, a wider array of behavior is accepted, than kind of might be the case. And I think it's because of that maybe, some aspects of the film don't quite ring true to me. Yeah. Again, that element of him returning back to the school and, to try to get back with her, I think kind of...
I suppose that made sense to me just because she has kind of rejected him over the phone. I don't want to speak to you and so on. But it did play to me that being rejected in person is what he needed to kind of, to understand it was at an end.
Well, but, he knows both things are at an end before he goes back to her. Well, he knows she's at an end before she returns to him. And I don't get that because, you can just imagine a filmmaker on his way to the Venice Film Festival to premiere his film. I mean, your boyfriend kicks you out. You ask some cute guy to go with you, and that's that. I mean, I don't
He's
understand.
so needy. I mean, that's the kind of character. One of the reasons I didn't like him. Bloody needy.
Well,
make up your mind.
I don't know. Well, he does seem needy in the sense that he always needs to be in one relationship or another, and he's certainly kind of very demanding and very, very egotistical and selfish about it. But you can also see the attractions of a person like that, I think.
Yeah, I think he has to realize that these two relationships are at an end before he finds that new cute guy.
Yeah, well, maybe.
You know.
Anyway, I like it very much, and I think we're living in an interesting time where this type or these types of relationships are kind of explored with the level of seriousness that this film offers. Though I must say that the level of seriousness that it offers in terms of the treatment and also a kind of understanding of I think people and relationships and so on is not accompanied by what I would say as cinematic nous. Yes,
Mm.
that he doesn't seem to me to be a very skilled filmmaker.
No, I quite agree. I think the film lacks pace, and that it occurred to me that might very well be
It lacks
deliberate. The pace.
it lacks visual poetry. It lacks visual expressiveness. Like you said, the camera is always like head on. It's a medium close up. Kind of. There are so many expressive tools, yeah, that are not at all explored through even lighting or anything, right? Like, I mean, and actually, I thought even the costuming, because I'd often catch myself saying, "Oh, I want that sweater," rather than what does that jumper tell you about this character and this person, and
Yeah, like how is he expressing himself through his
or
dress
what is the film expressing about that character through what he's wearing. I mean, there is some of that, but kind of there could have been a lot more.
Mm. Um, the film will come up occasionally with a composition or two, which is what, but it will like the film will begin a shot in an ugly composition, and then whether it's people leaving the scene and you end up with just two of them, and then it becomes a composition that is worth looking at. That happens a couple of times, but I kind of thought like this is a way that I've seen an awful lot of mediocre European movies look. It's this kind of cheap. The camera's just on a tripod, sat on at the end of a room, looking at a group of people. It's not very interesting. The sense of things playing out in real time, I kind of appreciate. That like it will the scene, the film will let a scene linger a little bit before while the character kind of absorbs something that's happened and moves on or whatever it might be. Like I quite like that, but it happens in such a visually dull fashion.
Yeah, it happens dramatically. So sometimes, like a character will pause and then run after a person, and actually, that's all held within the shot, and that does create kind of interesting tension. So kind of there are moments of that work and that are good, but you could have created the tension through I don't know, editing or all kinds of other ways, right? And some of it. So there was that scene where they were in the bedroom. And I think they're talking about getting back together or breaking up again. I forget what it was, and Ben Whishaw goes into the other room, yeah, and then comes back to answer. But you only see like the bottom half of his face. And you think, well, like, why?
Yeah.
Like, so kind of he's responding. It's a real moment. You want to see what effect this is having on him. And, the director's denying you that because there's like an interesting composition with 1/3 of the frame being it's just stupid. I thought that was
it's
ill-judged.
It's sub Tom Hooper, because Tom Hooper will at least let you see someone's like half of someone's face, but at least facing the camera. There's so much just being like stood away from the camera. There's that scene early on where Thomas is sat on the edge of the bed and Martin's in bed, but Thomas is completely blocking him off and facing him, so we just see the back of Thomas's head. Do you remember this shot? And there's a composition to it. There's something vaguely interesting. I don't know why it's happening though. I would rather see these characters' faces as they're talking to each other. These are good actors, and they're really wasted to a great degree, I think.
I don't know. So if you're thinking, is this a film that you need to run to the cinemas to? I would say no. It would work exactly the same on television. I don't think kind of visually it's interesting enough, to kind of warrant going to the pictures for. On the other hand, I do think that there is a real sophistication in its understanding of these people and these relationships, and in handling the actors. Yeah, I thought kind of, all the actors were very good. And German filmmaker, what's the actor's name?
Franz Rogowski.
Franz Rogowski is exceptional.
I didn't like it really.
Yes. Well,
I just thought, fucking lighten up, you miserable bastards. Like you've got places to live and nice jobs and friends. Just fucking
you
lighten
just
up.
don't have a romantic bone in your body and stuff. If it's not with children or in some cartoon, forget about it.
I just think this prick. It's just people who won't talk to each other, or they kind of will. Like he will express, I think I'm falling for this woman. Actually, he's very expressive about it, but he just won't grow up.
Well, I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think actually, if you watch it on TV, I think you get bored and turn it off. I think you have to be in the cinema because
That's probably true, actually.
Yeah.
That is probably true. So you have to go to the cinema, but not for good reasons.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. We are eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. On social media, we're on Facebook and X, or Twitter, as we still call it, at Eavesdrop Movies. And the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.